Good morning, folks. We have amazing news breaking all over the place. Trump will be indicted within hours, not weeks, not months. Within the next 48 to 72 hours, you will see indictments, federal indictments from Jack Smith falling on the former president's head. We also have news out of Ukraine. The spring offensive has begun, and it's already just yielding amazing results. And Russia has already sunk to, well, let's just say it, war crime tactics on a massive scale. And we also have breaking news for you. So let's get to it. Grab your cups, fill them up, get your notepads, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and let's make this happen. November 18th, 2022, Merrick Garland appoints Jack Smith as special prosecutor. He's charged with two cases: the January 6th insurrection, an attempt to overthrow our government, and the classified documents case. We got to come up with a better name than that, than the classified documents case. We just do. It was a decision that was not well liked. It was not well taken by anyone. And if you say you were happy when this happened, you're a liar. Republicans hated the appointment of Jack Smith. They absolutely hated the appointment of any special prosecutor. Democrats hated it because it appeared as though Jack Smith had been Merrick Garland had been dragging his feet forever, and then finally just handed the ball off to someone else. And it just seemed like this was just nothing was ever going to come from this, is what the feeling Democrats had. Because you have to keep in mind, folks, the January 6th insurrection happened in 2021. Let's just look at that timeline for a minute. The insurrection was in January 6th, 2021. Jack Smith is appointed in November, nearly at the end of the year in 2022. That is a long stretch of time. And we hadn't seen much in the way of convictions for insurrectionists. It was a frustrating, angering time if you're a patriotic American. But boy, were we wrong. Jack Smith and the decision to hire him will be written in the history books as pure brilliance. Now, I'm not putting too much into Jack Smith there. Don't get me wrong. This isn't just because it is Jack Smith, but who I think is doing an amazing job, by the way. He has been extremely methodical. He has dotted all of his I's. He has crossed all of his T's. Much to the frustration of a lot of us on the left who really wanted to see things happen. And it soothed our soul a little bit to see some of the January 6th insurrectionists going to prison, and some of them getting some pretty stout prison times. We also saw the head of the Oath Keepers uh, convicted. We saw the heads of the Proud Boys get convicted. We saw some serious jail time handed out. But again, folks were not on either side were not exceedingly happy. Why we Democrats were excited to finally see some action and generally displeased that it's taken this long. The Republicans have been losing their damn minds throughout the entire process, because you have to remember, if you think back to the January 6th committees in which I was on for Midas Media, we covered, there are a lot of Republicans that are facing serious criminal liability. There are going to be Republicans that are going to go to jail over this. And you just have to, I can't stress to you enough, folks, how this has driven what the Republicans have been doing over the last 2 years. They've tried to muddy the waters in every way they can. They called the January 6th defendants victims. They called them political victims. They said that they were innocent people that were just being attacked for political reasons. Called them political prisoners. They went and engaged in spectacles like going to see these people in jail and vowed to free them. Republicans have tried to stymie the investigation into the January 6th insurrection at every turn, sheerly out of self-preservation. And on the documents case, they push talking points out of from Trump himself that this was just merely a political hit job. You remember Donald Trump had announced his run for presidency exceedingly early, just so that he could make the claims that this investigation was for nothing more than to keep him from running for office. Republicans gleefully, Marjorie Taylor Greene and that entire F troop, gleefully repeated and expanded and just every way they could tried to undermine this investigation. That included attacking the Bidens. They have developed a case of Hunter Biden Tourette's. We used to make fun of Rudy Giuliani, because there was that amazing statement that every word, every sentence out of Rudy Giuliani's mouth was a noun and verb in 9/11. Every sentence out of Republicans' mouths mentioned Hunter Biden somewhere. A guy that's never served in any elected capacity. But they have claimed the Biden, they call them the Biden family now, trying to make it sound as though there's some sort of mafia crime family. It is just innately corrupt. You remember I did a piece in for both Midas Media and on this show that pointed out that all they're really explaining and trying to do it in language that makes it sound nefarious was they were just explaining how representing and being a consultant works, the actual business function of being a consultant, the establishment of bank accounts for your clients to do business where they want to do business, the establishment of bank accounts for you to get paid. I mean, all of these things that they kept holding up and saying, "Oh, look at this! They got paid." Yeah, they were consulting for these people. That's what consulting is. It's a job. You actually get paid for it. But it was just ridiculous upon ridiculousness upon ridiculousness upon ridiculousness. Anything to muddy the waters. Which brings us to this week, where we saw Donald Trump's attorneys entering and leaving the DOJ. And there was tons of speculation about that. I had actually gotten that wrong when I first saw it, because I know that Jack Smith's offices are not in the DOJ. They're not in the DOJ building. A special prosecutor, the GSA hired office space for them in an office building. He has his own office in his own building that they've leased for him for his staff. He does not work out of the DOJ. So I thought, Trump's attorneys going into the DOJ, this has got to be some sort of ridiculous in run, some attempt to try again to muddy the waters. But no, it turned out, no, it was legit. Jack Smith had his primary prosecutors there to meet with Donald Trump's attorneys. And the more we find out about that, the more just fascinating it becomes. One, it was an exceedingly long meeting. These meetings between attorneys and prosecutors are short. You have one thing to talk about. It's not usually a long, drawn out negotiation. It's not. This one went on for over 2 hours. Some of the details have come out. We know that the Trump's attorneys' opening salvo was, "Please don't indict the former president." Which is ridiculous on its face, but I guess they had to do it. Of course, it was roundly rejected. But we also found out that they actually offered a deal that Trump would take a conviction on one felony count. The DOJ would dismiss all other charges, and Trump would not see jail time, which was also not accepted. But it does tell us that the Trump camp does firmly believe that this is political in nature. Or at least they're trying to create a scenario that makes it look that way. Because had they taken that deal, all that they would have effectively done was prevent Trump for running for president. As a felon, he would not be allowed to run for president. Which is, of course, not what this is. This is an exercise in preserving our democracy. It is an exercise in what Leon Jaworski so eloquently said, when no one is above the law, not even a president. But again, these efforts appear to be just attempts at creating narratives at this point. I mean, if you look at it from Trump's attorney's point of view, Jack Smith has this nailed down, both the documents case and the January 6th case. He has this completely nailed down. So what is your bargaining leverage. You really don't have any. So it appears all of these machinations by Trump's attorneys on Monday were simply to try to create a narrative, which is exactly what Republicans in Congress are doing right now today with this ridiculous narrative that we heard all week last week. All you heard about was this 1426 document. This 1426 document. Turns out, folks, it was just all that is a log. When someone introduces evidence, it doesn't mean that the evidence is worth a damn. It just means that it's just evidence that was given to them, whether it's actual evidence of a crime or complete BS. They keep it, and when they keep it, they fill out a log. And the Republicans were running around screaming, "We have this document that shows that they logged in a document." Well, the reason they want that document so badly is because they know exactly what it was. It was bogus BS given to them by Rudy Giuliani, of all people. It was so ridiculously bad that Bill Barr had it for 2 years and said, no, this is nonsense. This is ridiculousness. This will be humiliating if I try to do something with this. This is not substantiated. This is just garbage. This is just garbage. We're not going to touch it. But the Republicans want to create an investigation. That's the whole point, is to create an investigation into the Bidens. Not because they think it will go somewhere. They know this smoking gun that they have is trash. Just like the humiliating press conference they had a few weeks ago with James Comer, where he claimed to have all of this evidence and then held a press conference to tell everybody he had no evidence. It is to create a narrative that an investigation into the Biden family exists in Congress, because they know in Jack Smith's investigation, these members of Congress are facing real criminal liability. They're going to face charges, and they want to hide behind, "You are attempting to obstruct our investigation by attacking our investigators." Just like Donald Trump wanted to protect himself and say, "You can't investigate me because I'm running for president." That makes it political. Members of Congress are attempting to shield themselves by ginning up a bogus investigation so that they can say, "Oh no, you can't charge us. We're investigators. And if you do that, you're obstructing our investigation," which is the height of hypocrisy, because everything the Republicans have been doing, including ignoring subpoenas, has been to obstruct Jack Smith's investigation. So Monday, Trump's attorneys meet at the DOJ. And it turns out it was a fairly consequential meeting, because we have now found out on Tuesday that Mark Meadows has testified before the grand jury. Jack Smith has reimpaneled his grand jury, and we know that Mark Meadows at some point sat down and offered testimony to the grand jury. There are a lot of really, really smart folks out there that are not wanting to get ahead of this and to claim what that specifically means, because technically Mark Meadows could have sat down before that grand jury and just declared the fifth. Just exercised his Fifth Amendment rights to not incriminate himself. He could have just sat there and said, "I plead the fifth. I refuse to answer these questions on grounds of that it may incriminate me." That could have been his entire testimony, but it's not likely. It's not likely. More likely is that Mark Meadows has been a cooperating witness, that he has tried to go through the machinations because he is a hyper partisan. He lives and breathes Republican before his family, before anything. He is Republican. And he tried desperately to not testify. He sued to claim executive privilege. He has gone to great personal expense to try to not testify, but they have him nailed to the wall. And it is my personal opinion that he flipped, that his testimony to Jack Smith's grand jury was part of a deal. They've offered him a deal. I don't believe that he just woke up one day, because there are three options: that he pled the fifth, that he just came clean, or that he got a deal. I don't believe he pled the fifth. I don't believe that he wants to go down for the long haul because of the rulings against him in his attempts to exert executive privilege. Mark Meadows knows Jack Smith has all of his communications. All of his communications. So it makes no sense for Mark Meadows to martyr himself. He has seen what happens to people that martyr themselves for Donald Trump. And it makes no sense that suddenly Mark Meadows woke up and he was just a good person. You know, this is the guy that sat there and twiddled on his phone while the Capitol was being desecrated. No, I don't believe he woke up one day and said, I need to do the right thing by the American people. So option 2 is off the table. He just is not just coming clean. He has a deal on the table. And he is singing like a songbird. And why I believe that is true is Donald Trump is on Truth Social losing his damn mind right now. You've seen it over and over again. When his butt is in a crack, he just cannot shut up. Every defense attorney will tell you the first thing that you have to do is shut the hell up. But Donald Trump repeatedly goes on these tirades. Every time he gets his butt in a crack, it's like an alarm that goes off for us. We know something big's about to happen because Donald Trump just gets oral diarrhea. And every time he does it, he incriminates himself. He incriminates himself. We just had the tapes come out of his discussions of the classified documents he had, how to hide them, and that he knew he was not entitled to have them out of his own mouth because he cannot shut up. We know for a fact that we do. Thanks to the New York Times, they did some great investigative work. We know for a fact that Mark Meadows is testifying. And we know what that means to members of Congress because from the January 6th investigations, we know that Mark Meadows was in contact with over 30 members of Congress leading up to the January 6th insurrection and why the January 6th insurrection was going on. And we know he was the gatekeeper to Donald Trump. So we know. I mean, we could just celebrate the fact that we know these things to be true. We know Donald Trump is losing his mind. We know Jack Smith has re-impaneled his grand jury. We know that grand jury has received evidence from Mark Meadows. And I spoke to a great criminal investigator about that. And what they told me was that this could actually be a longer than normal. This may actually go on for days. Typically, you have to understand grand jury testimony. You don't have to lay your whole case out. You don't try your trial with the grand jury. You just have to lay out enough evidence that they issue a true bill, which is what they say. Yeah, go ahead and file charges. You just have to put out enough evidence out there that they issue a true bill. But if you have a witness that you need to nail down, nail to the wall, while you have them before the grand jury, you rigorously run through their testimony and get their testimony on the record. Because if they try to go back later, say Mark Meadows gets cold feet, that whole "I love the Republicans more than anything" vein starts to pumping again, any of that, you have him nailed to the wall on perjury charges because he's already testified under oath to these facts to the grand jury. So while a grand jury, and where I'm going with this is, a grand jury will normally be relatively short. Hours, just a few hours. A criminal investigator will be called in before the grand jury by a prosecutor. A criminal investigator, it is a long time if they sit for an hour offering evidence to a grand jury. Because again, you don't have to, all you have to do is provide enough proof that you can make allegations. That's it. That's the whole point. That's why they say grand juries will indict a ham sandwich. Because just enough information is enough. It is not beyond all doubt. So, what does this mean to our timeline? We know as of yesterday, Meadows has already testified. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. That really helps. It really helps. John has a great comment here. Can you hear the violins playing for Trump and friends? You know the reason the MAGA crazies still support him. Trump told them if he goes down, so do they. That is true. That is true. These are people that tied their well-being, their sense of well-being, to Donald Trump. They have. And when he goes down, so too does their whole mental. We could do a whole show on the craziness that it is to be part of the MAGA cult. But as we were saying, on the timeline, we know that it will not be more than a day to 2 days worth of testimony. We know Tuesday we heard that Mark Meadows testified. Wednesday, no more than 2 to possibly 3 days at most. That would be incredibly long. 3 days worth of testimony to a grand jury when you are seeking an actual true bill is incredibly long. So here it is on Wednesday. We're looking at 24, 48, maybe 72 hours at the most, because the grand jury has to hear the testimony and then vote whether to issue a true bill. That true bill has to be issued. The indictments are already written. We won't hear about it until the targets hear about it. Their attorneys will be contacted before us, and then there will be a press release. So my guess is the Friday press dump will be indictments of Donald Trump. Yay! And I hope you're paying attention to all that, because I would really, at the end of the show where we have our roundtable, anything that I may have missed for you that I didn't get into, please have those questions ready to go at the end of the show. We have breaking news, folks. We have breaking news. Do you remember that miserable town hall at CNN that blew up in their faces, where they brought in Donald Trump with that ridiculous right-wing QAnon Barbie to sit and do a town hall that was filled with nothing but Trump sycophants? They actually interviewed these people to find an entire audience of Trump suckers and then put it on primetime television on CNN. You remember that just happened. Damn it, Marcus, I was going there. I love my audience. They are so on top of things. Ratings tanked after that happened at CNN. Ratings tanked. Newsmax, that joke of a little mini-me outlet, Fox mini-me outlet, actually beat CNN in primetime ratings after Chris Licht's brilliant idea, the CEO of CNN, the tallest hog at the trough, man, the boss of bosses, the one that sat there with Donald Trump before that town hall and told him, have fun, Donnie. Well, he's out of a job this morning. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Apparently, tanking your network's ratings doesn't go very far to selling that whole vision you had for your network. We haven't heard yet who is likely to replace him in the long term. It probably takes CNN a good amount of time to actually vet, to try to find an actual replacement, instead of what they did with Chris Licht, which was just a knee-jerk, idiotic move. What's interesting is that what they did with Donald Trump and his town hall, they have created another one that's already been put together. The money's already been spent. The audience has already been found for Chris Christie. And the question is, are they going to do it? Are they going to continue on with this ridiculous Chris Christie town hall, which is not really a town hall at all, when all you do is bring in cheerleaders? The whole point of a town hall, folks, is to have people there to ask you questions, to justify your policies, not just oh, yes, you're wonderful. Oh, I love you. That's not a town hall, folks. That is a political rally, which is what CNN did for Donald Trump. They hosted a primetime political rally that they should have to file with the FEC as a political donation. When they went so far as to actually bring in an audience that was only Trumpers, yeah, that has to be an in-kind donation. That has to be an in-kind donation. Then you call it a town hall when it is not actually a town hall, so that you represent this garbage to the American people as though it is actually something that it is not. That was a campaign contribution. And I hope CNN is sued, and I hope the Trump campaign is sued and are forced to disclose that as campaign contributions. In other news today, this is amazing news out of Ukraine. over the winter, Russia just threw everything into trying to take the town of Bakhmut. Thanks, Ren. I appreciate that, bud. I do. I really appreciate that. The support really helps out, really keeps things going here. As I was saying, Russia just threw everything but the kitchen sink at Bakhmut. It was a meat grinder for them. They lost more men trying to take just the city, the town really of Bakhmut than we lost in 22 years, 20 plus years, pardon me, of our complete domination of the entire country of Afghanistan. They lost more men in just trying to take Bakhmut. And they finally did secure the city limits for a few days. Then the Ukrainian spring offensive began. And Ukraine is rolling through Bakhmut. Prigozhin, the head of the Wagner group, has come out and said that again he's attacked the Russian military and called them inept and said that they've already lost significant sections of Bakhmut and they expect to lose the entire city because, well, not him and his troops that he said were so badass and were the reason that they took Bakhmut, aren't losing. Of course, he didn't say that. He said, oh, well, it's the Russian military strategy. No, Prigozhin's getting his ass handed to him. Sherry, I really appreciate that. Guys, you do not understand how much that really helps out. I mean, it really does. But Russia, knowing and seeing the writing on the wall, has engaged in old school Russian tactics. Do you remember in school when you learned about Napoleon's invasion of Russia? They said Russia's greatest general was General Winter, because the way Russians fight land wars is they engaged in scorched earth tactics as they lose ground. Russia isn't exceptionally adept at fighting wars. They really aren't. They've had a handful of brilliant generals throughout their entire history. For the most part, their generals and officer corps just sucks. It's horrible. They're just corrupt, horrible people that shouldn't be in their jobs. And they have no non-commissioned officers. They don't run their military like we run our military in the West. In the West, you have units and soldiers that report to sergeants that have experience, that are the old men that run things on the ground, that make things happen for the officer corps. Russia does not do that. They put all of that on their officer corps. And they're terribly bad at it because nobody really, what do you care about a guy giving you orders that's never been in a trench with you, that has no idea what's going on the ground firsthand? They have no boots on the ground leaders in their military, and it shows. It shows in all of their military campaigns. So, again, they fall back and salt the fields and scorch the earth, and in this case, blow up the dams. We have images from the Novokakhovka reservoir. This reservoir is in southern Ukraine. I'll bring up a map here in a minute and show you exactly where it is, but I wanted to see this footage from Reuters. This is the Novokakhovka dam. It was controlled on either side by Ukraine and Russia. The Dnieper River, and if you're not familiar with Ukraine, the Dnieper River bisects Ukraine in half. John, I really appreciate you, man. Thank you, bud. I really do appreciate you. I can't read those words. I can't tell myself stuff like that. It feels awkward, but I appreciate you, John. I really do. Leah, thank you. Thank you for all you do, Texas Paul. We love you even while we are doing mom stuff like cleaning the turlet. Hey, I clean the turlets too. I'm happy to listen to you while I do it. Thank you. I appreciate you. I really do. They blew up the Nova Kakhovka van on the Kakhovka Reservoir. That is to prevent, to create a humanitarian crisis, two, to create a just a catastrophe in the ground that the Ukrainians in their spring offensive have to cross. Let me pull up a map here. Let me pull up a map here so you can see. You know, most of us aren't familiar with Ukraine. Okay, this is Ukraine. As you see, Kiev at the very top, and this is in the middle of the country. That river, it's actually a group of lakes and reservoirs in the Dnieper River basin, is the Dnieper River. Just above where you see Kiev there is Chernobyl, and everybody remembers the Chernobyl disaster and why it was so dangerous, because Kiev is the breadbasket for Europe. The Dnieper River runs right through their farmland. When the Chernobyl disaster happened, it threatened to irradiate the Dnieper River, killing a huge swath of population in Kiev, all the Zaporizhzhia. Just as you can see, the river just bisects Ukraine. What we're talking about, let me draw in a little closer to you. This dam, as you can see right here, is the Nova Kakhovka Dam. And what you see highlighted in red there is the Kakhovka Reservoir. That's located, as you see, in southern Ukraine. Above, you see Mariupol to the east, Sevastopol to the south. That's the Crimean Peninsula. As you can see by looking at this, there aren't very many good crossings. I mean, it's really hard to push a tank across a lake, folks. I mean, it really is. Floating bridges are problematic in the least. But you could see there, this flooding. Let me pull in and get you a good look there. This flooding will actually deeply hinder the Ukrainians' ability to engage I apologize for that, folks. I do. If that ever happens, I thought we had that problem whipped, and we got through most of the show without it happening. Um, I'm terribly sorry about that. Our problem lies on AT&T's end. We thought we had that whipped. I will go back at it again. I'm sorry about that. Um, as I was saying, as you could tell by that map, flooding that area created humanitarian crisis, and slows an advancing army's ability to move into Crimea. That was the purpose of this. But the Russian propaganda being put out there is that the Ukrainians blew up their own bridge, or pardon me, their own dam. And I've talked about this before. You have Russian propagandists living in our country or around the world that are our social media sites like Twitter are more than happy to platform. You've got folks like this guy. Let me pull this up. If you've never heard of him, it goes by the name Kim.com. He legally changed his name. He's the big guy in the middle, the big goofy looking one in the middle in the black. Kim.com is a huge Russian propagandist on our social media. That guy is pushing the Russian story about this bridge being blown up, that it was actually the Ukrainians. And their narrative is that well, the Ukrainians filled the Kakhovka Reservoir to max, and since the bridge they blew it up, they're trying to maximize the flooding because their floodgates are still open. And that, folks, is garbage. It is just garbage. It is Russian propaganda. The Ukrainians gain nothing. They would be killing their own people. They would be slowing their own military advance if this were true, and it's not true. They claim to have proof that it's true because the floodgates are still open. Well, folks, the floodgates are still open because now they have to allow water downstream to lower the levels of the Kakhovka Reservoir so that it does not destroy the entire dam. As you saw from those images, they blew up a portion of the top of the dam. It's difficult, folks, to blow up a dam. It is not easy. These are very, very hardy structures. More often than not, you damage the dam, prevent them from being able to release water. Water keeps spilling through the cracks. It undermines the footing of the dam, and it's the actual leakage itself that finishes off the dam. So the Ukrainians have no choice at this point. They have to leave the floodgates open. They have to lower the levels of the reservoir. They have to, and it's been record rain for them. This is in the middle of the snow melt. The reservoir is going to be at the highest point of the year, and it's at record levels now. They have to allow that flood and the Russians knew it. The Russians knew all of this when they blew up this dam. They just didn't give a damn. The Russians don't care. They're a terrorist state. They're inhuman. And yet we have people like Kim.com putting stuff like this out on Elon Musk's Twitter. In case you had any doubt about the Pentagon directed Zelensky regime blowing up the Kakhovka Dam, he speaks like a cartoon clown. He does. If you ever hear the man speak, he is constantly on Twitter Spaces, and he talks like this. He talks like he's a German Finnish. He's from German and Finnish lineage. He sounds like a cartoon when he talks. And it's reflected in the way he writes. In case you had any doubt about the Pentagon directed Zelensky regime blowing up Kakhovka Dam, just look at Ukraine keeping the floodgates at max output upstream of Dnieper River. It shows that perpetrators want to achieve maximum flood damage. No, the Ukrainians don't want to make it as hard as humanly possible for them to advance from the west into the Crimean Peninsula. No. And no, the Russians have no offensive coming the other direction. So this is not the Ukrainians trying to create a natural disaster to prevent the Russians from advancing into Ukraine. It's not the case. The Russians are on their heels. They're losing territory. This was a tactic by the Russians. It is a war crime. They intentionally killed civilians, created an ecological disaster, and now the Ukrainians are having to deal with it. They have to keep these floodgates open amid trying to rescue people in all of the towns, all the way down the river, including Kherson. You've heard so much about Kherson. Kherson is downriver from this bridge. Thanks, thanks, Roderick. That's exactly what he sounds like. Kill moose and squirrel. Yeah. If you don't remember the Rocky and Bullwinkle show, he does. He sounds a lot like Boris from the Rocky and Bullwinkle show. But folks, this is what we're dealing with in our country today. And I just want to wrap this up on this note. Maybe it's time. Rights exist on a spectrum. The right-wingers like to pretend that rights are just like a line. It isn't. Free speech is limited. Free speech is limited. It is. There are things that you cannot do and say. You can be sued for libel. You can be slander. You can be sued. You can be found criminally liable if you do things, if you say things that endanger people's lives. The old example, you cannot yell fire in a movie theater. All rights exist on a spectrum, including the Second Amendment. That's a whole nother show. But our freedom of speech is being weaponized against us. It is. You have Kim.com, who we're working to extradite. He's a criminal. The New Zealand police had to fly into his compound in helicopters and cut him out of a safe room to arrest him. And yet here he is on our social media, Elon Musk's Twitter. They host him on Twitter Spaces all the time. Here he is pumping out Russian propaganda. And he can do it without fear of reprisal because of our vision of what free speech is. Perhaps we need to revisit that. There are other countries that are just as free as we are, where some things are off limits to say. You cannot push Nazi propaganda in Germany. It's a crime. They will arrest you. Perhaps it's time, when we are providing massive amounts of material support for a nation trying to defend its freedom, that the government have some ability to address this type of propaganda. I don't claim to know what it is. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I don't claim to know what that fix is, but I do know this is a problem. This is a problem because your crazy ass uncle, your crazy papa, they all believe this nonsense. They want to believe this nonsense. They want to believe the Biden, presidency is corrupt, and that therefore, he's supporting Ukraine. Therefore, they support Russia, and therefore, what Russia says must be true. They want to hear this nonsense that Kim.com and hundreds of other Russian sycophants and I believe many of these people are actually paid by Russia in one form or another to sit here and pump out propaganda against our country's own efforts to support a democratic state. Why is there no mechanism within our law to address that? And that's a conversation I believe is worth having. Mm. Man, I hope your coffee's as good as mine. Just got a fresh cup. Ah. So let's move to the roundtable portion of our show. If there are any questions on the Trump indictments, Chris Lick being fired, any of that, what's going on in Ukraine, any of it, please throw the questions out there. You know how this works, folks. You potheads have been here for a while now. What do you say? Great comment. We'll start that off. Silly Wonka, you've already got great comments. Putin is a 23-year self-imposed fascist dictator. Absolutely, he is. He is a KGB-trained operative that knows exactly how to overthrow governments and maintain control of governments, and he's done it for a quarter century in Russia. Glenna Marley, did we find out what the conversation was between Mark Wayne Mullen, Republican of Oklahoma, and Ted Cruz's knee the morning of the January 6th insurrection? No, but I bet Jack Smith did. Another great comment, not so much a question, but another great comment. Gina Lawson, Vicky H., I get truly concerned when I hear people in America say that it is time for a new government, that a dictator is what America needs. These people are just plain ignorant. Absolutely. And the right wing, I cannot stress this enough, folks, the right wing is absolutely willing to accept a fascist leader in this country. They will absolutely goose step along. If by some crazy galactic universe shifting thing and Donald Trump ended up being the president again, they would absolutely goose step along. They would. They would just be okay with a fascist government until that government came for them, because that's how it works, folks. Every Nazi Germany is an excellent example of how it works. The first thing they did was go after transgender folks. Then they went after gay folks. Susie Bird, I really appreciate that. I really do. You have no idea, folks, how much I appreciate the support. I mean, $5 is a big deal. How is it okay getting away with the religious charter school paid for by public? Is this the future? It is not the future if I have anything to say about it. I have come out hard against the churches. I've come out hard against these charter schools. I pay taxes. I pay taxes and have no children in school. I pay school taxes and have no children in school. I do it to support our public school system. That's what your taxes are for. They are not to pay tuition in private schools or religious schools, providing churches a vein to tap into for public government funding, which is exactly what this is all about. I talk about him all the time. There's a billionaire here in Texas by the name of Ferris Wilks, who's a religious radical zealot who is trying desperately, spending tens of millions of dollars in this state buying politicians to push churches, and he doesn't support all churches. He is a Seventh-day Adventist. He is, Church of Yahweh folks. They want this radical religious institution shoved into your schools. To them, that's the compromise. They either suck the funding out of your schools and pour it into their churches, or they pour their churches into your school. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. It was a great comment, by the way. Great question. If you folks haven't heard, Bexar County is spelled Bexar, but it's pronounced Bexar County. The sheriff there has conducted an investigation into the immigrants that were paid for. You have to understand, those immigrants didn't come out of Florida. They came out of Texas, that Ron DeSantis shipped from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. The sheriff down there conducted an investigation. And that investigation, day before yesterday, they released their findings and determined that, yes, that was absolutely kidnapping and human trafficking. And the sheriff there has recommended to the district attorney in Bexar County that they prosecute Ron DeSantis and all those involved. Do I think it'll happen? Yeah. Folks down in South Texas have balls. Democrats from South Texas are not like Democrats from everywhere else. Well, they fight with words, and no, Democrats in Texas and South Texas will punch you in the throat. So yeah, I believe it absolutely will happen. What will come of it, I don't know, but I do believe the case itself will happen. All right, let's take another question here. And I see some people misspelling it. Bexar County is spelled Bexar. The X is silent. Brandon Woods has a comment here. I wish Texas and California would tell Florida to F off about kidnapping migrants to please the base here in Florida. Crickets about Cuban migrants, LOL. Yeah, I would recommend to you take a look at what Gavin Newsom had to say about that. He came out swinging against DeSantis. So yeah, California is absolutely jumping in there. John Mooney, I appreciate it. Thank you. Two contributions in a row, man. I really do appreciate it. Is it better to have Joe Manchin as a Democrat or a real Republican as a senator in West Virginia? It's better to have what we have with Joe Manchin right now. It is. I hate that sumbitch. I hate what he does. He's frustrating as hell, but he caucuses with the Democrats, which gives us control of the Senate. So yeah. But in 2024, let's make him irrelevant and elect enough senators that we have a wide enough margin that Joe Manchin's crap doesn't fly anymore. If he wants to go be a Republican, he can. All right, folks, let's get a couple more good comments out there. We're running short on time, and you are the best audience there is. You are the best audience there is. I do different shows for different people, and I got to tell you, you people know your crap more than any audience I ever sit with. You really do. You are amazing people. I really appreciate it. I would like to ask a favor. If you have not already subscribed, the subscribe button on YouTube is just right down there. If you click on that, all that does is when you pop into YouTube, if I've got a new show out or if you missed a live or whatever, it'll be in that list of shows that you see right there. That's what subscribing does for you. It doesn't cost you anything, totally free, but it helps me tremendously on the algorithm. And if you could hit the like button on this show, it will push it out for people to view. after the live is over, and I would be most grateful for that. Just the little finger down there, hit the up button, and that would be great. Let's find another good comment because you folks are full of them. Nicole Marie, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am screaming this from the rooftops. Nicole Marie says, we really need to make it loud and clear that the 2024 election is about democracy versus fascism. As President Biden says, it's not hyperbole, folks. Folks, I don't care how you feel about Joe Biden. I don't. Because this election, while he's done an amazing job, isn't about Joe Biden. I don't care if they have to weekend and Bernie that guy if he has a stroke and dies. I don't care because this election is not about Joe Biden. Yes, he's doing an amazing job. Yes, I love the guy, but this election is about what Republicans have done to women's rights. Republicans are going after no-fault divorces, folks. They're trying to make it impossible for you to divorce your husband, your abusive-ass husband. They are making women second-class citizens. They are. They're doing that. They're attacking the LGBTQ community. This is the hallmark beginning of fascism. It is. Everything they do, they claim is for the children. That is exactly how fascist regimes speak. That's how they get power. They utilize the churches. Everything they do is supposed to be about the children. Look at all the fascist crap that Pudding Fingers DeSantis is doing down in Florida. I mean, I love what Wanda Sykes said. Says, until somebody comes into a school and beat 8 kids to death or 9 kids to death with a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, I think you're focusing on the wrong shit. It's really obvious if you're standing on the outside. But to Republicans, they're goose-stepping along. They're okay with it. They think they're doing something. If you've got a child, if you are the parent of a child, of a transgender child, they know they're transgendered. Before they hit puberty, they know. And if you can get that child care, like puberty blockers to delay puberty, and then hormonal treatments, once puberty does force its way into the window, it is proven that kids have lower rates of suicide. It is proven that transgender kids have better results later in life when they're adults and they can get gender-affirming surgeries. They're more successful, less painful, less complicated, requires fewer surgeries. Everything. If you are the parent of a transgender child in Florida and you try to get gender-affirming care for your child so that when they become an adult and want to transition into their actual identity, they'll take that child from you. And not only that child, they'll take every child you have away from you and charge you with crimes. That's Florida today. Yeah, folks, that's what this election is about. That's what this election is about. It's not about Joe Biden, as much as I love the guy and I think he's doing an amazing job. He's done an amazing job with the economy. He's done an amazing job with COVID recovery. He's done an amazing job with the PACT Act. He's done an amazing job with the CHIPS Act, which remember COVID crippled us because we couldn't get chips for anything. So our manufacturing just shut down. He made sure that doesn't happen ever again. Chips manufacturing is exploding across the southwestern United States. All that's well and good, but the alternative is fascism. And I mean, democracy is over fascism. There will never be another election again. There'll be fake elections, but they'll be so rigged that you won't really have a choice. All right, folks, it's 11:10. We got 5 minutes left. Let's do it. Let's do it. That was an amazing question there. I really appreciate it. And again, I would like to take a second. All you folks that are supporting me with folks, you have no idea. I came out of retirement. I have been a political blowtorch forever. I came up on forgive me. I came up on TikTok and made quite a name for myself there. I got onto MSNBC with a couple of things, and I joined the Midas Media Network. We've exploded over there. Doing this show, though, meant coming out of retirement. Because right now we're doing 2 shows a week, and I have to prepare for them. Had to convert my office here, aka gun room, into a studio. But I made the commitment to the missus that this wouldn't become a money black hole. All the subscriptions that are required. I mean, you know, those paywalls you run up against when there's a story, a news story. I can't have that. So I've got hundreds of dollars in subscriptions that I have every year and stuff like that. And the contributions that you folks help allow me to do this. And I can't say that enough. You allow me to do this. George Morris, we need the single issue voters who have been convinced it is a choice between life and death or vaccine complications as the description of health freedom. You know, man, I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean. Are you preaching anti-vax stuff, or are you saying that we need single issue voters like they have? I don't know exactly where you're going with that. I just saw a great comment there. Let me see if I can find it. Stay with me, folks. Foggy Ozark, I hate especially the Catholic religion more than evangelicals, really. You know, I go after the churches hard. I grew up in a Catholic family. I haven't been to church since basically I've been an adult. There have been some experiences in the Catholic Church that I am not really wanting to share. That just, I'm sorry, but I don't hate anyone in any religion. If you want to be, if you want to pray to Vishnu, if you want to pray, good on you. I don't hate Christians. I don't. But their churches are damn evil. They are flooded with pedophiles. They are actively engaged in politics, should be taxed and aren't. So, folks, when you hear me railing against religion, just know I don't care about your religion. I really don't. I really don't. I don't care about your religion. I don't have a problem with you because of your religion. But what your churches are doing is damn evil. And I will tell you to clean up your own damn backyard before you try coming to mine. Well, folks, it's 11:15. It has been a great time again. I love spending time with you folks. I am not kidding. This is not kissing your ass, folks. It isn't. You are the best audience. The comments you have, the deep thought that you have when I'm talking about something, the amount of knowledge that you already have on the subjects is amazing. It allows us to build onto, we don't have to do those quick talking points kind of news shows. We can get deep into the weeds because of you. It's because of you. Gregory Deckelman, I appreciate you. This is amazing. I am so grateful. $20 is a huge amount of support. You're doing what I would have done if the tech was around a while back. Keep on keeping on, brother. I tell you, folks, a lot of folks try to do this. It's hot in this seat. It's hard to sit here and talk for an hour to 2 hours to get into, I like to call it Rachel Maddowing a subject where you actually get into the background of it and give people context. This ain't easy, brother. It's not easy. I encourage everybody to try it, but this ain't easy. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Folks, it has been another wonderful time, and I don't want to go, but we are out of time. And if I let this go on too long, no one will watch it because it'll say that it's an hour and 15 minutes on YouTube, and everybody's like, I'm not going to sit and watch something for an hour and 15 minutes. So if you can, do us a favor, share this, tell people to watch it, head to Twitter, wherever, throw the link out there, get people watching this. Let's get this information out. Let's get people coming with us into the audience at least twice a week so that we can get in a little deeper on these subjects than what you see out of the corporate media. I love you, folks. You are the best. Old Texas Paul out.